Hello, I'm Rangroo,
And I'm sdauz.
and we are doing a 3v3 on Bergen today. A bit of a co-cast, something a bit different. On the NATO side, we have TKN Jazz, B3R Ox, and Ghandi.
Yeah, and Pact side we've got Batano, Nope.avi, which is a fantastic name, and Chris.
Yeah, it's like that's from the Team Fortress 2 video, Nope.avi, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I have no idea. I just like what he's trying to say.
Aye. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, sdauz?
Well, I was a big Wii player, and then I played Airland Battle. I think I got to the third stage of that first tournament they had, and then I got into the Airland Battle beta, which was the best thing ever, and I just gloated on everyone else because I had it. And I've been playing Airland Battle ever since. So much fun. Such a good game.
Very good game. I think I spent half of my, or a lot of the year on this game. If you notice, NATO's getting an awful lot of Saparals, a lot of AA, quite a new Centurions. I believe this is post-patch, so you might see some of the new quirks of the new patch that is going to be going on.
I'm not a huge fan of the Chaparral. I know they're good. I just think the ammo's too slow, and they're too slow, and they're too squishy.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the United States AA unit. You have the Avenger, which is a Humvee with Stinger missiles, which seems a bit too squishy and it has pretty crap range. The Eyehawk is slower than a slug on top of a tortoise, and the gunsuit's slow. And Saparel, it's great because it's the only NATO anti-helicopter AA that has over 3,000 meters of range. But it's so slow, so vulnerable, and as you said, it doesn't really carry much ammunition underneath its
I love me some pivettes. I'll take 3 pivettes at start of every game. If you want to notice on the Pact side, we've got a lot of East German infantry and East German transports. Could be more Schützen.
Or some Reservich. I know the Reservich got a little bit better, so now they come in 15-man squad, so you can do good old-fashioned Stalingrad charges.
Couple of T-72s. Since the patch, medium tanks have gotten accuracy buffs, and T-72s, some would argue, would be the best tanks to benefit from that.
And I believe they got a bit of an armor penetration buff as well, so they're going to be doing a little bit more damage. Hopefully match will be starting soon. And no changes have been done to this map since the patch, which is quite good, because it's quite a nice map. Very much symmetrically divided, with 4 capture points for each side and a resupply point on each of the flanks.
The interesting thing I find about this map, though, is just it's got so many roads that it makes having helicopter infantry at the start kind of unnecessary, because the roads are there. You can use your trucks really quickly.
Yeah, and especially up highway on the middle, that is quite a big addition to the map. And I never actually noticed. Yeah, right. There is an awful lot of roads. Match has started.
Is this map has it been changed since the patch? Because we noticed Foxtrot, Alpha, India, and Juliet have spawn points,
no,
and that's what they did
always
in the
been
patch.
I know.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say in the patch they took out a lot of spawn points from a lot of maps.
They have like Upseller, like there's a lot less spawn points in the app now. Because I think I really want you to do or use resupply routes a bit more often. You have a little bit of both sides moving in their units. A lot of infantry, so I'm expecting quite a lot of CQC battles in the middle.
There's a couple of attack choppers from the Soviets. I really thought if they're going to be... I was really hoping somebody would be Polish, and then you take a bunch of Polish choppers with anti-air missiles on them, because it's such a good counter.
Great counter for early on as the Sokol, used because it has the Igla missiles, just absolutely destroy Huries, and Chinooks, as well as the cheap Mi-2, which uses the Strela. NATO aren't getting a lot of helicopters, or mainly Ghandi, getting a lot of Dorniers with ATGM infantry inside, probably the Milan Run squad for West Germany. The MI8 is going to be engaging some units over Gulf, but it's going to get shot down quite quickly as the flank Panther Gepard A runs are here. They are doing quite a bit of damage.
It's interesting, in the south we've got a bit of a tank push. We've got 1 Abrams supported by a bunch of Centurion Marks 5s.
Oh, they're all so clumped up together.
1 cluster missile, that's all it takes.
1 cluster bomb. Bada bing, bada boom! And it would all be gone.
So, do you use Abrams much when you play?
Yeah, Yeah, I like it. I like the whole Abrams line because they are pretty good against infantry, as they do have 2 machine guns. It's probably one of my favorite NATO heavy tanks.
Yeah, I like to use the Abrams in conjunction with the AGS because I find the Abrams takes the damage and the AGS is just got good rate of fire. Now, if you look in the south, I'm not sure if they're going to go continue going on that road and try to get behind the front lines of the Conkers in that building, just to the left of Alpha.
But they are moving they're moving right through, right next to an enemy spawn point. So these T-72As are just going to spawn in. They have this GQC advantage. And I think these Abrams might have a bit of a trouble. They are getting shot at from all sides, especially the Concords and MTLB in the town sector. Yeah.
And he's even got some. Finally, he just unloaded his Conkers. There was a bit of a late one on that. I think this is going to be stopped real quick. All they need is maybe an MLRS, and this entire push from NATO is going to be stopped.
Yeah, I'm actually amazed. Both sides have not really used planes at all. Most matches I've seen, everyone usually gets like some sort of napalm bomber or intercept off the bat. Speaking of a plane, we actually have a MiG-27K being brought up from Chris, from the Pact side. Seems like he's going to be engaging some of your Swedish tanks in the forest up in India.
That is literally my favorite plane in the whole Soviet deck. I take like 4 of them in half my decks. So good. Pinpoint accurate. And I love the sound that they make. And it's gonna get shot down.
Oh. We had a mortar 2 rolling.
Oh, I get shot down.
Right over enemy AAA. Does get shot down. Seems like Pact are kind of poking at the India point, but they're not making too much progress. It seems their commando's holding out quite well against the more strictly forces.
At Alpha, they brought out 4 mortars. Pact has, and they're starting to bombard the NATO players. And the NATO's starting to pull back. They're already starting to pull back. They realize they've too much.
M1 Abrams just getting out of there with a sliver of HP. I think he's probably going to keep your Centurions in that little forest jar and try to hold it out.
If you see in the north, the Pact is actually pushing with T-62 MV1s. I'm not a huge fan of the T-62 line. I think they're too slow. Do you use them much?
The T-62 is quite an interesting tank because it's very slow, doesn't have great armor, a pretty crap gun, but oh boy, that ATGM is absolutely brilliant. The Sneska is basically a Koken ATGM, which is what Hind uses. These T-62s are greatly used in packs. At long range, because the ATGM can just pop off Leopard 2A4s before it can even fire 1 or 2 shots. And they are quite cheap, like 65 points for an armoured ATGM tank isn't too bad.
Yeah. And if you just saw in just north of Foxtrot, these Panzer Grenadiers are just being destroyed. They're being shot at from all directions. They have mortars shooting down at them.
They're not in a good position. They're trying to rush the VDV. The VDV little garrison, and probably try to take it over.
Corsairs coming out. Looks like they have napalm bombs. Probably going to hit those buildings with the Conkers.
Yeah, the Concords are going to get a bit buggered. It's going to be very toasty in the air from now on. VDV's also feeling the heat. I love making napalm puns when napalm gets used. It's probably the most funnest thing about casting.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the Zippo ship that's going to be there in Red Dragon.
Oh, yeah, the little patrol boat flamethrower thing.
Yeah, from Vietnam. Cool. That's going to be interesting. I just wanted to say, this is interesting. If you see from the Pact side, they've got 4 FOBs. Ever since the resupply change, FOBs have become a lot more interesting. But see, on the NATO side, they've got just 1 FOB.
That's going to be quite that could be a situation if the match goes on longer, because you get less supply trucks per card now, so you really have to reuse your supply trucks, fall them back to the base and get them resupplied. For example, you see Batano, instead of just suiciding his Urals like most people would pre-patch, now he's falling them back to the FOB so they can get some more juicy supplies and bring them back onto the front to refill the AA and tanks.
If you see, even in Foxtrot, just south of there, there's an Abrams with 1 point of health, and they haven't resupplied it as yet.
Yeah, just one sneeze from that and it will be toast. And the Pact are trying to make a move up onto Foxtrot. I do have a lot of medium cheaper tanks. NATO is probably going to hold us off quite well. I have a lot of heavy tanks all scattered around, and the ATGM Islands are doing a very good job picking them up at long range. And of course they're also dropping in napalm, panicking and blocking the line of sight for these T-72s.
The thing I find interesting with these games, though, is you find a lot of players. What I like to do is to snipe out their recon. The first thing I try to do is snipe out the recon, and that's exactly what NATO's done. They've killed the Spetsnaz that was in the forest, and now they have no line of sight. Probably pretty poor line of sight.
Yeah, and because all the NATO forces are in the forest, they're going to be quite hard to see. And it seems like Pact is going to be falling back a little bit, and that doesn't go too well for them. They weren't really using long-range tanks, they were using some medium, crappier tanks. But they're not too bad at close quarters.
See, the longer this game goes on, the more concentrated the defenses on both sides become, and the more difficult it becomes.
But we do have a little bit of an assault in Echo. We have a bunch of VDVs being responded by Urals, holding out the fort. We have a lot of Jaegers though, and Panzer Grenadiers, which could actually overwhelm them.
And the KPZ-72s are coming to support them. Oh, two Super Etenards. Sorry for shouting, but every time I see them I want to shout. And one got taken down.
And the second run, it's down and out for the count. Trying to get a T-72. Not really a worthwhile target. These T-72s only cost like 50 to 60 points, where the Super Etenard does cost 80.
Totally not worth it. Yeah,
totally not worth it indeed. You want to use the Super Retinal for taking out the big beastly T-80Us and the other big heavy tanks like the T-64 BV line, so on and so forth.
But the Americans in the south, a lot of Abrams. So they're really getting to a critical mass of Abrams. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Abrams and 4 mortars.
And as well as Leopard 1s and Leopard 2 A4s. They're going to be doing an assault again. It seems lots of action on the southern side. They should be able to push through. The only troubles it should be up against are the Concords and this one lone hind. The Chaparrals are moving up into position to shoot and get down.
See, in that situation, I would have preferred to have a pivot, because the pivot can be close to the front line, so it actually has a little bit of armor, and it could have started hitting that hind way before. And now, if you look, the Leopard 2 has to pull back because it's taking too much damage.
Yeah.
The first T-80 on the field actually happens to be just a basic T-80, which is a strange choice. Yeah, I never see them. This is literally the first time I've ever seen a base T-80.
Yeah, and it is going to be moving up. It didn't really stand a chance against them when they went Abrams and Leopard 2 A4s, so I don't expect it will live for very long.
Yeah, but as long as the allies, when I say allies, I mean the NATO continues to come in piecemeal, their broad attack's not going to work. They need to come in all together with all the Abrams all at once, and then you just get a critical mass of things firing and blowing stuff up.
There's a lot of their units at the moment are quite damaged, and they keep falling them back, but they don't really have... they're starting to bring in the resupply units, but before, they didn't really have yet. And piecemealing the units, aka moving them up in a solo fashion, never works well when trying to assault. You always want to move up with everything at once in one giant critical mass.
Have you seen any super heavy arty like there used to be in a couple of patches before when they were really popular? You know, the really long-range howitzers that fire 2 shots?
Not much anymore. The super long-range, like, heavy artillery I see aren't really too popular, especially in some of the more, like, higher-level class matches I play, because first, they're really bloody expensive. Second, it takes a while for the shot to reach its destination, and third, you can only really use them to knock out AA. Like a nice example, or nice use I like to use him for, is I'd fly him over I'd fly a siege plane over enemy lines. It would spot all the radar AA, but again I'd mark down a position of where the AA is. Bada bing, bada boom, shoot with heavy artillery, pick them off one by one, and I can send my A-10 to do all the dirty work.
This is really peculiar, I'm finding it at Alpha. They're just sending in like leopards every now and then. They really need to start moving their stuff together. Or even better, I would separate out all my mortars into individual pieces and smoke an entire front line.
Oh yeah, that'd be quite a good idea. Because this forest right below Alpha, where the T80 and T72s are, yeah, it's going to be quite a pain to deal with because they're very easily concealed, yeah, and they can just keep bringing reinforcements into that forest because the Alpha is a reinforcement capture point.
Yeah, and what I find is also really interesting is that if you notice Pact, they haven't bothered putting any kind of conkers or anything like that in between Alpha and Bravo to get side shots on the tanks coming forward.
They used to have some earlier, but I believe they did get destroyed by the Corsairs. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Getting those side shots on Leopard 2s is such a good thing.
It feels so great. It's euphoric, enlightening, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And NATO are going to be making quite a bit of progress into the Pact lines. They're starting to use their mortars to try and stun any of the units that are getting spawned at. And these T-72As are going to get eaten up. And I think NATO could actually move up in here. Like, I believe they have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, they're starting to move up Centurions. They've got 5 Centurions coming up. I think those are just cannon fodder.
Yeah, me too.
And you've got these like Swedish tanks, which I really enjoy using.
Yeah, great rate of fire. Great rate of fire. Like 15 rounds per minute, which is awfully fast.
Pact is starting to notice this is a real thing, which is part why they're pulling their T-72s back to the forest. And the Tunguska's being hit. If they can snipe out those Tunguskas, then they can start calling in their planes, because there's not much anti-air there.
Yeah,
there's just 2 Ossas and a Tunguska, and that's it.
You have to note they're not really moving up all their forces at once. He has, if you notice back in Foxtrot, he has 3 M1A1 Abrams that he could really move up and use to attack. I don't know why he's keeping them back. They're all well supplied and on max HP. Oof.
Oh wow, that T-80B just got side-shotted by these 3 Centurions south of Alpha. It was so screwed by itself.
And now NATO's starting to be holding that little forest. We have an Su-22 with ATGM rockets flying around trying to spot a target. And NATO's starting to bring out some helicopters. They have a attack Cobra, the good run of the Ito missile, being brought up. Oh, this Su-22 is going to be dedicated. It's going to try and knock out the M1A1 Abrams. Almost.
Oh, that was so
it.
close.
So close. Only 1 HP left on their Abrams. He's going to pull fag to the forest, and NATO are going to start bringing up some resupply units into that forest to start resupplying the Leopards, Abrams, and all of that good stuff.
Oh, that ice that just came out, tried to fire a shot on that SU, it just got knocked out.
Pact is a pretty good, yeah, pretty decent AA net. They are using the OSA AA unit, which flies awfully fast and great at knocking out planes in a short distance.
I'm finding this whole thing very strange though, because if you see, Pact realizes that NATO wants to push on Alpha. NATO's not pushing particularly hard, but they're not really pulling in any more reinforcements.
Because I believe it's because their spawn point is camped. You see all these Centurions, yeah, they're quite good at. Because it's only a CQC battle where Centurions are. If a Pact unit was to spawn, it spawned right in that little crossroad, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Pact,
go ahead.
I was going to say, Pact has brought in 1 Howitzer, Mister.
Oh yeah, I see back here, it's a really expensive Howitzer. Like 110 points, you can only get 1 per card, but it's pretty bloody good. MiG-29, yeah, actually doing a bit of a cluster bomb run on the Centurions. It did lose quite a bit of HP, but do have the Hemp here to resupply him and nurse him back to good health.
And 1 Tomcat's brought out to try and counter these Pact planes, which you're starting to notice more of.
They're starting to use plane attacks a bit more. On the rest of the map, though, if you notice back in Gulf, you have some Mochkuchins moving up, yeah, trying to take the area. They're doing quite a good job. They can probably move up. There's nothing there to really stop them. We have some reinforcements being brought up here as we speak.
Yeah, it's just the lack of recon. If they had more recon there, they'd notice there's not much to stop them apart from those commandos, Jack commandos. But they saw the Audi, they saw the allied Audi, and they're Audiing the command truck at Gulf.
And that is going to get knocked out sometime soon. That'd be a real good use for using the Su-22 to knocking out CV. A little bit dangerous. Not too much. There's only like 1 Flak Panzer and 1 Mortar 2 Roland in the middle, so you could probably Su-22 out. But they're going to take the safer approach and try to mortar the shit out of it.
And the second Mr. Sdauz.
Yeah, and yeah, CV, he is down. Pact are going to start trickling in the points. See, both sides haven't really been gaining much points this entire match.
Pact seems really lethargic in the north and the center, and they should be pushing a lot harder because there is not much there. And if they were to push harder, then NATO would have to start pulling out some of their troops from the south to go north.
Yeah, especially in India, it's not really too much. Like 1 ATGM squad, 2 AMXs, and just an awful lot of AA. If they can just recon an area a little bit and find out that there's not much here to stop him, they could do quite a good job. And continue keeping the offensive attack and getting themselves some more points to win the match.
What's interesting is NATO has actually brought on 2 of those super heavy howitzers in India.
Oh yeah, they're from very close to the front line. These howitzers don't usually need to be as close. Oh yeah, Pact has actually spotted them. But the howitzers don't need to be as close because they have very far range compared to like mortars who have very short range. So a bit risky having them, yeah. And because Pact has spotted them, they might do some... Yep, they're going to counter artillery. Yep, with both of those misters.
And they fire so many shots compared to this, the 2 shots,
yeah.
The super heavy howitzers.
Super heavy howitzers are more better for pinpoint killing like the armored units in AA, while these misters are just jack of all trades.
Oh, look at that, some weasels. I don't see them very often. And VTSI, some of my favorite units from the original Wargame European Escalation.
On the Gulf sector, we do have a little bit of a counter-attack from Ghandi and the Rocks, moving a lot of Panzer Grenadiers and Rhymers into the area.
It's nice to see all these somewhat expensive and somewhat, special forces units being used, when before the patch, pretty much they were not very cost effective.
Yeah, before the patch, as I like to complain every single match in ESL, it was reserve infantry, reserve infantry, reserve infantry. Because reserve infantry could basically do the same job for a lot cheaper price.
Yeah. And you can get a lot more for them per card. If you look, 1 T-80B is out now. They're hoping to counter the Abrams, but there's such a massive Abrams still, and Leopards.
They're not going to do too well. Yeah, actually managing to smoke one of the Conquer squadrons I find quite smart. So he is going to be down for the count soon as the tank force does move up. Yeah, he's moving up quite a bit, a bunch of Centurions, very much a diverse tank force.
And if you notice down the misters, the Pact heavy howitzers were actually hitting the mortars at Foxtrot, and they actually almost killed one.
Oh yeah.
Which is an interesting counter.
Interesting counter indeed.
Oh, I really hope NATO starts moving up its heavy tanks. I don't know why their heavy tanks are so far back.
Yeah.
Can't use that range.
I think I used... That's
T-64 spawned. T-64 spawned out of Alpha and just got knocked out.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's just a... If you zoom in, yeah, that's just a huge... Just lots of dead Pact units here. Lots of dead.
Oh, Centurion took out the command vehicle at Alpha.
And that is going to be quite good for them. NATO can start gaining some ground. And if they can hold on to Alpha, there's a resupply point right here. And that would be quite good because they can start bringing in reinforcements instantly into the Alpha zone if it does get attacked.
I've actually, ever since the last patch, not the most recent one, or the one before that, I've actually been using command vehicle choppers, and I just love them. You just, just because of their speed and versatility, as soon as you're on the move, as soon as you take a reinforcement point, you could just put in a command vehicle chopper and bang.
And you got it. It's quite risky at the same time, because you can't really hide a helicopter in a forest. The rails are made to get all messed up.
Cobra just took out a T-80B. Good use of the Cobra. I think that's the second most expensive Cobra. The 65.1 with the OG.
That's the 90.1 they're using.
Sorry.
But there's one more expensive. The Sea Cobra, I believe, is like 100 points, something around that line, and it has AIM anti-plane missile, which is quite weird for a helicopter.
And it's actually faster than the normal Cobras. You wouldn't think Cobras could get any faster, but it is.
A very fast mobile attack helicopter.
I think now Pact has to do something. They can't keep this. Like, if they take Alpha, they're in such a bad position because their whole flank at Bravo becomes open.
Yeah, they do have quite good control of the middle. They are holding Gulf, barely by Fred. And Ghandi has a CV. Oh, now he moves it into Gulf, and that's going to be neutralized. still not a good position now. NATO, we really want to take out the point back, but there's an awful lot, yeah. But as you were saying in Alpha, they can easily just counter-attack into Bravo, and heck, even into Delta. And if they capture Delta, that's basically a good game.
In fact, they could probably send some recon helicopters and infantry choppers into the background through the sea and around that peninsula and into Delta. Now, what's interesting is if Pact is countered by bringing on a Havoc, which I'm not sure that's the best counter considering how much anti-air is on the field.
Yeah,
and yeah, and NATO's brought on a Leopard 2 command vehicle, which is a great choice if you're going to go up into a contested spawn point.
Yep, because it's lots of HP, and if you really want a spawn point, a tank CV is always the best because they're very hard to knock out compared to a tiny little Jeep or a APC command vehicle. And it seems like a little bit of action is going on in Gulf. NATO keep trying to move up from the India side of Gulf, but they keep getting shot at by the Moskvichin with their RPGs. And now they're trying to move in through Gulf, a bunch of Panzer Grenadiers and Delta Force at the little factory area on the bottom side of it. And they're going to clear out all the AA, yeah? And they... oh! Yeah, he's going to keep it in...
Delta Force. Delta Force in Gulf. I don't see Delta Force very often.
Yeah.
I was actually annoyed that in the recent patch that Delta Force didn't get Carl Gustav, which is, I want to use Delta Force, but I don't want to use their crappy anti-tank weapon.
That's the one downside to the Delta Force. It's a very good infantry squad, but they have such a crappy anti-tank weapon compared to Kerchakers. You get Carl Gustavs and War Marines. You get Carl Gustavs, which is just so much better. So they're not really all entirely popular. Yeah, I have seen a few, Motoku and Topu. They like using Delta Force and Black Hawks early off in the game because the Black Hawks is quite a nice attack helicopter. Not attack helicopter, transport helicopter.
I think Pact has to make a move now on India. It's the only way it's going to work out. They need to bring on some tanks and they need to push through. And honestly, there's nothing to stop them apart from the Jack Commando. Yeah, and that could be solved with some smoke.
If they can just neutralize a point for a bit. As you see, they are in the lead in terms of points at the moment at 277, but NATO is slowly but surely going to catch up to that, and in 15 minutes they could have probably 400 points. So Pact, they don't necessarily need to counter-attack fully, but they need to neutralize points and cause attention like in Gulf or in Echo, because as a +2 point you don't really want NATO to have yet.
I'm actually surprised that there's no recon chopper on that peninsula, because honestly, if I was playing this game, I would send troops in over the sea into Delta. So it makes sense to have a recon chopper there just to scout out, just in case that tries to happen.
Yeah, they could actually do some sneaky peeky business by going over the sea, as you mentioned earlier, and dropping off some infantry. And there's nothing there to stop them. Pact does not bring that much aircraft, so the aircraft drones spot them in the sky. And even if the little pathway from Alpha into Delta, they have a skeleton crew of T-80s holding there. And there's a few infantry in the town in Bravo. They could easily move up with their quite big tank force and take it.
They're smart though. They put some conkers in that town south of Bravo, and they put more Schutzen there. If I were them, I'd put a little bit more infantry all around the place, just to soak up some damage so your T-80s are not being one shot at. Mirage out. I wonder whether he's going to napalm.
Yep. And he is going to... oh, it seems like it's on a napalm at little marker, yeah, which NATO has spotted. That's a very good point.
Smart.
Oh, getting that SP. Yeah, gonna burn those Scoochins up and blocking off that little road. And a Cobra in a very good position to shoot it, and if it comes along with its ATGM and Hydro rocket system.
I can't believe these 30 B2s up in Juliet are actually beating these T-62 MV1s. It's very disappointing. 2 MiG-31s out. I suppose they want to counter all the planes now with having their own interceptors. Are they interceptors?
MiG-31 is a long-range interceptor, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a MiG-27 for a ground attack forces, your favourite plane.
Oh, it's so good. You take like a motorized USSR deck, and you just put as many MiG-27s as you want in them.
Do you have a bit... we have a bit of an assault from Charlie into go. A bunch of Mots directly moving up in the open with BMP run support. I think I could actually take out the Mots, the Panzer Grenadiers and Delta Force, and they do have late Scooters around the flank as well who could start shooting into that sector.
I think a lot of...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna, you know, a lot of players, they're used to playing destruction. And when you go into Conquest, you sort of have to change that mindset where you realize you can't sit back and defend. You've got to take positions. Otherwise, you're just gonna get point destroyed. And in this case, they're not pushing in India, and it really annoys me.
They're not really like taking an initiative to really scout out their options, because they could move up into India. They don't really have too much Pact, but NATO doesn't have too much either. I mean, there's a few ATGM squads, right? Yeah. This one good T-72 or so would probably knock your area out, and Pact really needs to stop the NATO point flow at the moment.
The problem with Pact, as you can see, if you look at in between Charlie and Juliet, is that they're just buying a ton of infantry. They're just like each player is bringing on BMPs and German, East German infantry, and they're just spending all of their points on infantry when they might want to just take some of those points and get some attack units like tanks or a BMPT.
I think they're really just trying to hold on to what they got at the moment, because Bravo they don't really have much yet except for a few like Scootchins, and they are kind of playing in a defensive manner by trying to hold on to these last 2 points. They really need to bring up some more offensive units, as you said earlier, like some tanks into India, like we mentioned earlier.
And a Jaguar A came out from NATO and destroyed a anti, I think it was an OSA, and then the 2 MiG-31s come out. And that's kind of the problem with interceptors. You need to have them on the field all the time. And if your enemy's smart, they'll wait till your interceptors decide to evac because they run out of fuel, and then call in their planes. And that's the perfect opportunity to bring something out.
We have a little bit of an assault into Bravo, a bunch of Panzer Grenadiers holding the building. But now, oh come on, unload Nope.avi. You need to really unload his infantry. Yes, finally, the Scootchins unloaded using the Panzer Grenadiers. I do like how he is losing like Scootchins as the ATGM. It's a short range ATGM, like 1500 meters, but with that ATGM they can completely cover the whole Gulf and Echo side if any tanks try to move up through yet.
All these TPC Fuchs which are coming out right now.
Yep, and now I see picking them up at long range, which is quite good. But the TPC Fuchs is an awful lot of them, and they're going to completely overwhelm Pact aggressors in there. Even some AMX-30 B2s being used. The MiG-27, I really like how Chris is circling his MiG-27 to knock out any tanks or APCs that do try to come up with Bravo and Charlie, using it in a very safe manner instead of just gun running it and letting it get killed. And it seems like if you look back in Alpha, the Centurions are starting to make up a bit of a push. I think they are moving up a lot of their heavy tanks now, Centurions. They could be doing an assault into Delta, but Pact do have some T8, just box standard T80s and a T62 and a few T72s to hold the point.
And you can tell now they're going to start their assault because they're sending infantry into the town at Bravo. Or they were, but they decided to stop and just start moving on foot. And they're starting to move their Abrams up. And when they start moving the Abrams up, that's when you know they're going to attack.
Yeah, heavy tanks.
At this point, I think a Bertine or something like that would be the most useful because it cuts line of sight and it stuns and it shocks tanks, even if it doesn't kill them.
Yeah, or even just like garrison that little lumber mill in between Alpha and Delta. Some few buildings that they could put some just just normal line infantry in there to shoot their RPGs to Centurions which are moving up. They really could have used that advantage.
You see, both sides are using their tanks in very similar ways. Pact has got the T-72, KPZ T-72s, Ms just to shield and meat shield and cover their more heavy tanks, which include the T-64BM, which is a great tank for its price. And NATO's doing the same thing, but with Centurions.
Yeah, using the more cheaper cannon fodder tanks to really soak up all the H, and then they have their more expensive tanks in the back, really doing all the damage. And I think this NATO so could actually get shut down. The T-72s and T-80s are in the CQC scenarios, so They don't really have to worry about armored penetration power.
The thing about these games is that they have so many units. Like, if you just zoom out, you see how many units on field. People kind of forget what they have. So, for example, if you go into Foxtrot, there's an Abrams sitting there.
Oh,
if you see
yeah.
this, there's a bunch of like command vehicles that they could just move. Not command vehicles. I mean transport vehicles that they could use as cannon fodder to cover their forces. Just send them out first and waste the ATGMs of their enemy. They've got 4 mortars sitting in the back of Alpha, which they could use to smoke or just stun the enemy, but they're not using any of them. And it's just the nature of this game because too much goes on sometimes.
Even for us, it's kind of hard to commentate on absolutely everything because so much is going on at the same time. It's hard to always pick the hot spots.
Tell me, do you use the Wargame or do you use the NATO symbols? Because I actually tried using the NATO symbols.
I use the Wargame symbols. Just find it
Yeah,
easier.
the NATO symbols are too complex, and people who actually were in the military who I know, and they're like, you should use the NATO symbols, they're very easy to understand. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How can you tell the difference between a Centurion and an Abram if they both have the same symbol?
Very true, very true. Seems like the NATO has kind of been put on a standstill. It has 3 Abrams just on the top of Alpha. And we do have a lot of T-72 reinforcements being brought up from Nope.avi to deal with those little buggers, yeah. And when Abrams trying to knock out T-72s in Bravo, Eagers trying to move up, but they are getting shot at more sides by BMP-2s and, you guessed it, T-72s.
And you know the critical point has been reached because NATO has overtaken Pact in terms of points.
And Pact is really going to have to do something about that, because they are losing. There's only 6 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. I'm not entirely sure if Pact can pull this back. The best option probably is probably try and capture hold of Gulf. They have a lot of infantry already in there. All they need to do is bring up a CV, try to neutralise it, and they it did actually manage to snipe the CV in Gulf. So that's going to stop the NATO point progressing for just a little bit. If they can just bring up their own CV and now they can start catching up. Because it's only a 50-point difference at the moment.
Yeah. I personally think if they take Gulf and they secure India, because once they secure India, it's a lot harder to reinforce because they have to come from a hotel.
Yep. We notice back down Alpha, Chris moving up his Mi-28, and it's in a very good position at the moment. NATO's Chaparral is out of ammo, and they don't really have any anti-helicopter AA nearby, so this Mi-28 can just go completely ham on the Abrams, which are going to be forced to pull back, and it seems like assault into Delta is going to be put on standstill. They are moving up into Bravo now with an awful lot of infantry inside just some Reek trucks. And they could probably get the right side part of Bravo with their infantry and hold it out. And they could probably even knock out the CV, which is on the top right point of Bravo.
It's really annoying me to see those mortars there in the back of Alpha. They could really move them up and use them for smoke or just stun.
They could really be using a lot more better use. Oh, MiG-31 actually getting shot down. You saw it?
Yeah, just misclick there. You know, planes are hard to use. You know, you click them in one direction, they may not move in that direction. In this case, they overshot. You don't want them to go too far out and get inside missile range of the enemy.
Sometimes they evac away from the AA, sometimes they evac towards AA. It's like playing Russian roulette with them sometimes, I swear.
I remember playing the beta back when the game didn't come out. And I went up against some really good players, and I noticed a thing where no one was using planes. This was back when there was a timer, so you call out a plane, and first you board it, and then you had to open up the deployment menu where you buy units, and then click call out. And then only when you click call out would come out. Yeah, it was so weird. It was difficult to use.
Seems like Pact are trying to take an initiative now. They are moving up a CV into Gulf. If they can just move it up, yeah, they can start gaining some points. There's only 4 minutes left. Oh, NATO does manage to re-secure the Gulf side. For 4 minutes left, I really doubt Pact can bring us back now.
Oh, and a cooler out from the Pact of Juliet. I like those little guys.
Yeah, I do as well. It's actually been buffed a little bit in the new patch, and because beforehand it only had 6 points, but now they have 8. So now you can take a little bit more damage before getting shot down by those pesky chaparrals.
They're just such fast looking choppers. easily the most badass looking chopper in the game.
I know in real life it's the first ever helicopter to have an ejection sheet.
Oh, that's scary. I wouldn't want to do that.
I know, you never think a helicopter to have an ejection sheet because you have kind of those spinning blades of death on top. So kind of, you know, shooting upwards, you kind of die like how Goose did in Top Gun.
And it's not just like one rotor, they're two rotors.
Yeah.
So the chances of you getting out safely are pretty low.
It'd be like a blender.
Oh, unless it just dropped you below, unless your seat just fell out and you just fell out of it.
And NATO trying to move up into Bravo. Oh, they're using the mortars now. They are starting to use their mortars to stun some units or stun the VDVs in the Bravo sector.
And the VDV is just kicking ass. It's such good. It's probably the best infantry the Soviets have in just like all-round special forces.
It has the RPG-16 RPG, one of the only two Pact units to use it, which is a RPG that has 875 meter range, while most of the other book standard RPGs only have like 500. So a huge advantage there, great for knocking out tanks at a more longer range when you really need to touch them with a high explosive anti-tank round.
And you know, one of the great things about playing the Soviets in general is that they have just such great sort of APCs and IFVs with their infantry, and they have robots which are great.
Beat boop,
Shred
I am a
tanks.
robot. But the BTRD robot, yeah, that's a very nice infantry transport. And now in the patch, they gave Pact a bog standard BMP run, which doesn't have like an ATGM, but it only costs 10 points, and it's an armored transport vehicle with 2 armor, so it can take quite a bit. It can take a little bit more punch than, let's say, an LAV, which makes Pact quite awesome in the APC department, as well as BMP3s. You cannot just not love the BMP3.
It is so great. My only disappointment with the patch is I'm really hoping they would just give the LAV 2 front armor.
Yeah, it's
2-3.
I know the Cougar, the bloody Canadian counterpart, which is basically just an LAV without the Bushmaster cannon. Yeah, it has 2 frontal armor. It hasn't changed yet, which is a little bit odd. And with only like 55 seconds left on the clock, it's gonna be a good game for NATO.
Yeah. I feel like Pact, NATO, they were smart. They didn't really try to change things up in the north because they saw that Pact weren't willing to push that much, so they were just happy to let them stay there, and they focused all their attention on the south, which is a smart thing to do.
Yeah, I really liked the south attack, as they used a lot of cheaper tanks to take in all the damage and do the CQT fighting, when I had the heavy M1A1 Abrams and Leopard 2A4s dishing out all the damage, knocking out T-80s and T-72As, and just finally just completely overwhelming the Alpha side and capturing the Atfall themselves. And because of it, they can start putting pressure into Bravo and in that little pathway from...
And considering the number of heavies that were being fielded, the number of Abrams and Leopards, the fact that they're bringing out T-64 BMs and T-80Us right at the end, and the T-80U is coming out right at the end, this was really too late. They needed to bring those out at the start.
And that is a good game. NATO actually getting an advantage in kills by 2,000. Very good match here, I have to admit. It was very refreshing for me not seeing reserve infantry runs in a match. I'm really liking this new patch and this new metagame, and it is starting to evolve from it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wanted us to go back to the days of when heavy tanks were boss and ATGMs they could just laugh off the conkers. But you need to have that sort of very tightrope balance where an ATGM can one shot kill a tank, but at the same time a tank can stun an ATGM really quick. And in this case, in terms of the accuracy of medium tanks, it's good. It's a good change in the meta.
Very good change. And well, I'm Rangroo.
And I'm sdauz.
And it's been the RANGROOCAST with sdauz. Take it easy.